everyone, I'm Andrew Harris, and these are Sur Rons.
Hey guys, welcome. So this is my second breakdown video on my ASI powered Sur Ron. It's still COVID season, and it's also forest fire season. The sky is orange and my surroundings look very weird, but we're on beautiful Berkeley campus and we have the Sur Ron with us. I want to go in a little bit more depth on some of the recent mods that I've done, as well as some of the upgrades I plan to do in the future. Starting in front like I did on my previous video, we're going to take a look at the front end. Out here, rather than the stock 19-inch rims, I bought the 17-inch Supermoto wheels. These are honestly one of the best upgrades I've done to the bike so far. Makes turning noticeably grippier. I feel like I just have a lot more traction, especially when they get nice and warm and sticky. They really grip. The 225mm rotor I have up here is the Hope Floating Front Rotor. I put little 1/2-inch spacers on the caliper bracket right there so that it would fit correctly. And then besides that, we've done the spoke covers in yellow to match the rest of the bike and the aesthetic. And we have a mud hugger front fender. It is the extended variant, and I painted that yellow as well. This is a 12-volt Amazon headlight that I wired up and I control with my left hand on the handlebars. We also have the 2 turn signals with internal relays that have awesome little animations. And we have our super powerful night LED. This guy is a great light bar, really lights up the street at night. People always see me. I'm never worried about getting hit. And frankly, it just blinds you most of the time. Other than that, on the front end, not much has changed besides the fact that I got rid of the initial handlebars and went for some bolt-ons that fit directly off of the front triple clamp. These guys actually change the riding position a little bit and they make your experience a little bit better. It's more of a sport bike feel rather than more of a dirt bike feel. So it's personal preference in terms of if you want to do that mod. However, to make sure that I would still have a space for the TFT color display right here, I actually left the stock handlebars right here. So if you'll see, I have my stem mount right here and it comes directly off of that. So my brights and my little screen right here are both mounted off of this old handlebars. I just basically took a jigsaw and sliced this off and now have my new handlebars down here. So that basically serves only a purpose in mounting the hardware on my front end. Briefly touching one more time on the control stack, you'll see I have my nice TFT color display right here. It's a 72-volt display. It's controlled by this little doodad over here. You can go up and down to control the modes. You can also program in a couple more things based off your wheel size to calibrate for speed, and you can also control in the backdoor app or on your computer when you're programming the controller itself how it sets up those different modes. So you can set up like a neutral, you can set up a reverse, you can set up a bunch of different things. For now, I'm just running 3 different power modes, which scale basically 1/3, 2/3, and full power. And that seems to be plenty for me. I don't really need much more customization than that. Now, if we move on to the control stacks up here, you'll see that I have sort of a funky looking thing going on over here. So I have my turn signals, my horn, my brights, and then I also have my regen control. I changed this from a physical throttle that you would have to rotate because you had to rotate it in the opposite direction as a typical throttle. When you turn a normal throttle, you're pulling it back towards yourself. So when you do this oppositely, you're pushing it forward on the left hand. This is super uncomfortable and unintuitive, and I do not recommend people to try that. So instead, I highly recommend someone install a thumb throttle, and then your braking is purely a pinch response. You're basically grabbing the brake and you're grabbing the thumb throttle and you're just squeezing, and this controls your entire rear wheel. I also have found that I don't really need to use my rear brake very much at all. I upped my regen settings a little bit, and my BMS totally takes it. I'm basically able to lock up the rear tire at about 30-40 miles an hour and basically just take all of that power and put it straight back into the battery. It's a huge thing for range, but it also makes things just a lot more durable because I'm not going through my brake pads and my rotors. Keeps the rear wheel really fresh, and I don't really have to worry about things overheating so much when I'm under heavy brake load. I've been running this sort of half twist throttle guy for a while now. Works perfectly, don't really need anything else, but I'll eventually probably get a nice longer throttle that fits the entire handlebars, so that is something to look out for. And then besides that, it's important to know that if you're gonna install these little grips, I got this little Pro Taper guy here, you're gonna have to slice them in half if you're gonna have a throttle like this. And if you're gonna have a thumb throttle, you're gonna need to use about 3/4 of it. And so I'm definitely gonna get some nice yellow grips to match the rest of the bike. But it's kind of weird to notice that that's a problem you run into. Now, also on the front end, we have our BAC4000 controller right here, and it is covered by a custom heatsink that I got from Matt Botos. I'll have a link in the description below, but I really love the way this looks. It fits really well, and it gives a really solid mounting bracket to the bike itself. Before I had it attached with zip ties, and that looked really crappy, frankly. But this is just a much better source of heat dissipation. It actually gets a little bit warm when I ride, but this is plenty of cooling power. If you live in a hot area, I wouldn't recommend painting it black like I did because it'll absorb a lot of light and therefore generate a lot of heat. I would definitely leave it the stock gray color that he ships it with, or powder coat it a light color, say maybe like yellow. But really great mod. Thanks again to Matt for that. The BAC4000 controller that I have behind here, I've been having tons of problems with. So as of recently, at least, it's been a little bit better, a little less finicky than it was before, but I've definitely had some times where I'll get some sort of unknown errors on my display, and it'll just sort of spit these codes and make me turn the bike on and off. And I don't really know why that happens. I don't really understand the mechanisms that's going on in there. I know a lot of the software and how to set up these things with the proper parameter files, but beyond that, the internals of this thing and how it functions are sort of a mystery to me. It seems like a lot of settings are linked, and a lot of people have a lot of issues when they tweak one, and then it ends up affecting everything else. So I'm gonna do a controller deep dive soon. I'm working with a couple other people on that, and hopefully that'll be a great community resource for people very soon. So stay tuned for that. One more thing I just want to say briefly about the motor controller. A lot of people have been asking me where to get these. I got mine from a guy named Alan at ERT, and people ask me if they should get from him as well. I don't want to say don't buy from him, because look, I got mine working, and the bike is amazing now. It works super, super well. Very proud of the performance, but the amount of trouble I had with this was terrible. So I was basically programming the controller for about 3 months last year when Alan refused to give me any assistance, and I basically sort of got screwed over by the guy. So not trying to defame him, not trying to take business away from him, just be wary that he's not the best seller out there. There's definitely a couple other people you can talk to, say Dan Orlov in Russia, or I believe there's a company out of Canada, maybe one more out of the States, I'm not 100% sure. But when I have a better source on motor controllers for the US at least, I will definitely post an update video and likely endorse them, considering the fact that they are so rare seemingly in the States right now. One more important detail about the motor controller, I've seen a lot of guys go the BAC4000 route instead of the 8000 route, and this is ideal. The battery packs that are being manufactured right now for the Sur Ron actually will never max out the BAC4000 unless you're getting a 45 amp hour battery, which I'll also link in the description from Litespeed. So the reason for that is because maximum amperage on this thing that you can draw from the battery is somewhere around 300 amps, and the controller has a higher tolerance than that, as well as a higher voltage tolerance. So theoretically, you actually have a lot of headroom still with the 4000, and you would almost never need the 8000. Some people say that the 8000 makes more sense for them specifically because it has greater heat dissipation. It's a little bit more reliable, some people argue. I have never seen that has been a factor that would matter unless you're literally taking this thing to a track in, say, Arizona in 100-degree wet weather. Heat dissipation on your controller is not going to be the bottleneck. It's for sure going to be your motor. So one thing I want to feed into is that the motor being trapped behind this super solid bash guard is not getting a ton of airflow. I used to run a heatsink on the right side of the motor, right here, which would help dissipate heat a little bit. But instead, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting out a hole in the dash guard or ordering a new one from Luna that has pre-slit holes in it. Just so that it gets that much more airflow. The motor is definitely the bottleneck. So if you're thinking about upgrading to a 72 volt system and you're going to be racing it, I would highly recommend upgrading the motor. I've seen a lot of people that have experienced problems with their motors once they start pushing around 80 volts. So definitely consider that if that's the route you're going. Super cool and kind of random feature that comes with the BAC4000 or other ASI controllers with regen. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but from my understanding, the software is able to detect when your wheel stops rotating, the rear wheel at least. And because of that, it will let up on the regen when it notices that your wheel has stopped. And so at low speeds, you get something like this, where it's a jittery kind of shakiness. But at high speeds, what you'll get is an ABS-like function that highly resembles a traction control or something. So when I'm going through a turn, especially when I'm sort of late braking, you really only want to use your regen, because even if you do start to slip with the rear tire, it's going to regain traction very, very, very quickly. It's almost impossible to really skid out from locking up the wheel with your regen. Also, I know with the ASI controllers, you can tune them so that if it notices that the wheel is slipping somehow, then it will actually release or reduce the power so that you almost get a traction control-like effect, or a launch control kind of system. So right now, at least, in Mode 3 for myself, I do not run any such programs, but in Mode 2, I've been messing around with it a lot, and it seems as though it works a lot better in loose terrain, on gravel, sand, a little bit looser dirt, grass, things like that. You'll notice that the tires will just be spinning like crazy when you aren't in Mode 2. But since I've done this sort of traction control mod, it's actually getting a ton more grip. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that for people, especially who are running these super, super, super non-grippy off-road Supermoto tires. These are entirely meant for roads. They are not meant for off-road. You are not going to get the performance you would from a knobby. So I do not recommend trying these off-road unless you have a traction control-like system, or you have some sort of ABS kind of system going on as well. So definitely, definitely, definitely recommend that if you're an advanced programmer or have any experience programming motor controllers, that you get the traction control and ABS feature sort of working. Not very hard to figure out, but I'll definitely post about that in my controller deep dive as well. I just installed some really nice LED lights. These are RGB LEDs, and I have 6 of them on the bike right now. So we have 2 in the front. We have 1 underneath the swing arm here. Kind of difficult to see. Hopefully that comes out. I have 1 at the back of the seat, and then I have 2 under the support bars of the subframe for the seat. And these are great, so you can change the colors on the fly. You can have them strobe, flash, do whatever you want. But I really just find that they help my road visibility at night. During the day, I'm really not worried about someone hitting me. But at night, especially with the bike being almost all black originally, I feel a little bit scared that someone's just going to whack me. In order to wire it up, all you're going to have to do is hook it up to your 12-volt system. So my turn signals and my brake light run the 12-volt system. So it basically just ran the wires all the way back, and I have a little bracket guy under here. That holds the control unit for it. I'll have a link for that in the description as well. It's really great, and then it comes with this awesome key fob. So the top button changes the color of the LEDs. So I can go to blue, gold, purple, green. You get all these awesome colors. It really looks great. And then you can change the pattern that goes along with it as well, whether you want it to strobe or you just want it to be on. And then you can also control on off with the bottom button. So we have color selection, strobe, we have fade in and out, and then we have on off button. But overall, really great, cheap mod. I think this cost me like 40 bucks, and it just makes the bike look that much better. Finally, moving on to the rear, I have done nothing unique about the rear tire. However, I am running the stock sprocket, so I am running an increased gear ratio on the 17-inch wheels. This gives you a lot of extra torque, and it is very noticeable, especially at lower speeds, though it will limit your top speed. So currently, I have my bike electronically limited with field weakening settings to 65 miles an hour, but theoretically, people have gotten these bikes up to around 85, almost 90 miles an hour. The fastest I've ever tried to go on this thing was mid-80s, and that was actually uphill. And it got there no problem with the 19-inch wheels with the stock gearing. So Jack Cecil, definitely coming for your world record. Definitely going to try to post a 90-mile-an-hour run, but I'm going to need to find like a drag strip or something where I can do that safely, because legally it is just a nightmare to try to do something like that on a highway or on a street road. You're just going to get killed. So highly not worth that. But also, very important thing about speed runs. One thing I've noticed about the bike is because of the geometry of the front fork and because of the lightness of everything, you will 100% get speed wobbles at speeds above 70 miles an hour. And that is the one reason I don't recommend people attempting this. I don't think it's safe. Definitely wear safety gear so that if you were to slide out, you would not get injured. But once again, highly, highly, highly discourage people from attempting that record. But once again, Jack, I'm coming for you. One super important concern about high-speed runs, though, is the speed wobbles. And so if you are running into that, one thing I would recommend is a steering damper. You can install this on a motorcycle fork using the front triple clamp and mounting it directly off of the chassis. I'm going to attempt something similar to that if I go for a motorcycle front end as a replacement for my kind of crappy RST front fork. Not really a fan of it, kind of not really as springy as it was when I got it, and I kind of screwed up. I got a bunch of metal shavings in it when I cut off the handlebar, so I think that's probably not making it work too well either. But definitely be careful if you're going for high-speed runs. Very, very dangerous. I've been lucky enough not to have any bad crashes or anything, but definitely something to be aware of. If you are going that fast, you will get some wobbles. One last detail about the rear end that I'm sure a bunch of you have noticed is that in my previous video, I had a second seat. That seat was attached using square 1-inch steel bars that basically fit over these aluminum frame pieces. One thing I ran into with that is that when you're carrying around a 200-ish pound person on the rear, you're going to be stressing this subframe a ton. And so the way that I realized it, at least, was when I was driving someone around. I got back to my house, I drove up my stairs as normal, which I do basically every day when I have class normally, excluding Corona time, of course. And the rear seat actually snapped off, breaking my subframe. So it cracked right about here on both sides and completely destroyed my subframe. Had to order a new one from Luna, and this one works totally fine. It's totally stock, nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to be running long seat extensions off the back, be very aware of how you mount it and the leverage that you're applying to the subframe. So I definitely have seen a couple people do it a little smarter than I have, where they mount either off of one of these bolts right here or off of even a foot peg bracket, an entire extension module, sort of, I guess you could call it, on the rear that gives you a lot more support. So if you're gonna go the second seat route, I would not recommend doing it without getting some sort of custom support made, or by attaching some sort of bracket down here. I don't know. You guys are pretty creative, especially in the Facebook group. I'm really, really looking forward to what people come up with, but I've already seen some crazy, crazy inventions. So definitely message me with any of your cool ideas or modifications, especially if you guys are just a little too scared to try them. I'd love to try out some mods that you guys recommend or things that people just haven't even tried. One thing I'm definitely going for is I want to have passenger foot pegs. If I'm going to have a second seat, I can't let the person use my foot pegs and then just have my legs like hugging the front fork or something. It doesn't really work. Very uncomfortable riding experience, not anything I would recommend. So if you're going to go this route, once again, definitely get passenger foot pegs, definitely get the supports, definitely think through the whole thing, and definitely stress test it. Moving on to the last couple things, I haven't really done all that much more to the bike since my previous update video, but one noticeable upgrade is my cowl stickers. So we're definitely sporting the Berkeley colors. I'm definitely trying to go for more of a yellow and black look. I know you guys are going to say, oh, you need your blue, you need your royal blue look. I I sort of went with yellow as my accent color. Bike was already black. Unless I'm gonna powder coat the entire thing, it's not really worth it to me. I've seen some people that have done some amazing mods in terms of making their bikes look beautiful with either matte black or blue or all kinds of different bronze colors. So I highly recommend going down that route if you really care about the look of your bike. Getting it powder coated is definitely the best thing you can do for it in terms of looks. One other thing to note in terms of looks, the front fender and rear fender, as well as my bottom bash guard that I painted yellow, are definitely chipping. So my rear is not noticeable that much. It's only really noticeable from the inside where it's gotten heated up from burnouts and things like that. But on the front, at least, I'm noticing quite a few little bits of chips in the front. So I'll have to repaint that at some point soon. But I highly recommend doing a top coat layer on it so that you don't experience that as much, or using a better paint. I sort of just used like a yellow sealant. Thought that was going to be the best thing, but at the end of the day, I'm not a painter, and it didn't work as well as I would have hoped, but still gives me the accent I was looking for. If you guys have better recommendations in terms of how to paint these bikes or how to make them look pretty, please comment at me or message me on Instagram, which is my main platform of communication with my followers. If you guys reach out to me there, I will get back very quick, like the bike, and I hope to see you all there. Last thing I want to talk about before I go is my current power stats. So I know a lot of people have been saying that the bike only gets a certain amount, you can only pull as much as the BMS allows, blah, blah, blah. But if you have a Litespeed 72-volt battery like I do, they don't actually have a current regulator in terms of how much you can draw from the battery. So you can be drawing as much as you want. It's only mechanically limited by the chemical reactions that are taking place inside each cell. So what I've actually been able to do is get my bike up to 24.6 kilowatts. So running running more than 4 times the stock power on this bike is terrifying. You can wheelie almost at any speed, especially with the 17-inch rims and with the gear ratio that I'm running. And that makes this thing a little scary. So quite frankly, I don't run it on full power most of the time. That's only a peak power, keep in mind, but running around 14 kilowatts, running around 10 kilowatts is plenty for this thing. It's already a quick bike to begin with the 6 kilowatt stock, but if you're looking for just a little bit more, 72 volts is definitely the way to go, or some extra external batteries that you can mount off the rear. Once again, I've seen some people do that. There's definitely a lot of resources in the Facebook group, but I would want to link a specific post, so I will have that in the description below in terms of how you mount basically these cargo boxes off of the rear using a 3D printed bracket that powers up the bike that much more. So very, very cool mods from the community. Very, very much looking forward to what other people come up with, but definitely consider that if that is the route you are trying to take. Lastly, I just want to say thanks to everyone for the support I've been getting, both on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The community is really great and super strong. I'm really blessed to be a part of it. I'm going to be posting a lot more frequently. I don't have all of my normal commitments because of COVID right now, but that does enable me to be posting a lot more frequently and putting out a lot more content for you guys on a bunch of different platforms. So stay tuned on YouTube, stay tuned on Instagram. I will definitely be posting at least once a week, probably more than that. And I would love to hear your recommendations in terms of mods, your concerns in terms of safety, and your ideas in terms of style and things like that. But I want to thank everyone for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't, because I know that like 10% or something of my views are from subscribers. So please subscribe if you can, and I will see you guys in the next video.